Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking about something I think we can all relate to.
Mm-hmm.
Job interviews. Sometimes they're exciting,
Yeah.
sometimes they're terrifying, and today we're going to try to equip you with everything you need to be successful in your next interview.
Absolutely.
We're really lucky to have access to some materials from JBA's Student Interview Prep Program,
Yes, a fantastic resource.
and I'm excited to get into it.
Me too.
So, I think a lot of people, when they think about job interviews, they just get nervous right away.
Of course. Yeah, it's a very
Yeah.
common anxiety that people have.
Yeah, and there are all these unknowns.
Exactly.
Like, what are they even going to ask me?
Right, and you never know who you're going to be talking to.
Right.
Are they going to be nice? Are they going to be mean? All of those things.
Yeah, they're going to like me.
Exactly.
Am I going to like them?
Yeah, and it comes down to preparation.
Yeah.
The more prepared you are, the less those unknowns are going to be scary to you, and the more confident you'll be.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the thing is, you can have all the right, experience and all the right skills.
Yeah.
But these days, employers are really looking for something more.
Yeah.
And the JBA program calls those core competencies.
Yes.
So,
Which is a great way to put it.
yeah, and they've outlined 7 of them.
Okay.
And we have communication, teamwork, problem solving, reliability, adaptability, work ethic, and initiative.
Wow. That's quite a list.
It is. And
That's a good list.
yeah, it's like the secret code to cracking the interview process.
Yes.
But I think a lot of people, when they hear these words,
Yeah.
they're a little bit vague.
Right.
Like, what do they actually mean? What are they looking for?
What are employers looking for beyond just like checking the box?
Yeah, exactly. So let's take one
Okay.
communication, for example.
Perfect.
So obviously, if you're going to work on a team, you need to be able to communicate with your team.
Right. And that's not just about being able to speak clearly. Right.
Or right, well, although those things are important.
Yeah.
But it's also about being able to really listen to your colleagues, understand their perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
and convey your own ideas
Yeah.
effectively.
Being able to articulate your ideas succinctly. And, sometimes when we think about communication, we think about like being a good public speaker.
Right.
But it's so much more than that.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times this is about those nonverbal cues too.
Yeah.
Are you making eye contact? Are you, really engaged in what the other person is saying?
Yeah. Are you asking clarifying questions to make sure that you're understanding
Exactly.
before you, give your opinion?
Yeah, because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's about making sure that everyone's on the same page
Mm-hmm.
and working towards the same goal.
That's so true. And, this is something that I've really had to work on,
Yeah.
especially when you're working on a team project and everybody's stressed and you're feeling the pressure.
Sometimes you just want to get your ideas out there and, make sure that you're being heard.
Yeah.
But I was working on this one project a while back,
Okay.
and it was kind of a mess.
Yeah.
And I think we were all feeling really overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And at a certain point, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to stop. And I'm going to really listen to what everybody else is saying.
Good for you.
And I'm going to try to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to really clearly explain, what I think the next steps are.
That's great.
And you know what? It made a huge difference.
I bet.
Just that shift to really actively listening
Yeah.
and then being clear and concise
Absolutely.
in my own communication really helped the whole team dynamic.
And that's what employers are trying to get at with those classic, tell me about a time questions.
Totally. It's not just about having communication on your resume.
Right.
It's, can you give me a specific example?
Right. Can you actually demonstrate that
Yeah.
you have this competency?
Yeah. So let's talk about some of those questions,
Okay.
because the JBA program actually gives a whole bunch of really great examples.
Yeah, they did a good job with that.
Did they work with hiring managers or something
You did.
to come up with these?
Yeah, they actually consulted with recruiters
Wow.
and hiring managers across a bunch of different industries
Oh, wow.
to figure out, what are the most common questions?
Okay.
And more importantly, what are the most revealing questions?
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
What's one that stood out to you?
Well, one that I thought was really good was describe a challenge you faced in school or at work. How did you resolve it?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Because it really gets at that problem-solving
Exactly.
piece.
And not just problem solving,
Yeah.
but, how do you deal with setbacks?
Yeah. How do you think on your feet? How do you adapt?
Right. What did you learn from that experience?
Right. So it's not just about I solved the problem and it's all good. It's about, what did you take away from that
Yeah.
experience?
What did you learn from it?
Yeah. And the JBA program recommends using this thing called the STAR method
Oh, yes, the STAR method.
to answer these questions.
Are useful.
Can you break that down a little bit?
Sure. So STAR stands for
Okay.
situation, task, action, and result.
Okay.
So essentially, you're telling a story,
Okay.
you're setting the scene, you're describing the situation,
Hmm.
the challenge that you faced, and then you're outlining the task at hand. What were you responsible for? What were you trying to achieve?
Okay.
And then you talk about the specific actions that you took
Mhm.
to address the challenge, and finally, you highlight the result.
Okay.
What happened? What was the outcome of your actions?
So instead of just saying, I'm a problem solver, you're actually walking the interviewer through
Right, exactly.
a specific example.
Show, don't tell.
Yeah. And what are some mistakes that people make when they're using this method?
Well, I think one common mistake is focusing too much on the situation and the task. Okay.
And not giving enough detail about the actions,
Okay.
because the interviewer really wants to understand
Right.
your thought process, how you approach challenges.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to get granular. Describe the steps you took, even the small ones.
Yeah, I think sometimes people are afraid to get too into the weeds,
Right.
but it's those details that really show
Get to the detail.
what you
Oh,
did
yeah.
that make it believable.
And I imagine the result part is really important too,
Absolutely.
because it's not just about what happened, but also what you learned.
Yes, that's where you can really showcase your self-awareness
Yeah.
and your ability to grow.
So it's not just about checking the boxes.
Right.
It's about showing that you can reflect on your experiences
Exactly.
and grow.
And apply those lessons to future roles.
So we've talked about core competencies and the SCAR method, which are so essential for like nailing those behavioral interview questions.
Mm-hmm.
But before you even get to the interview stage, you've got to make a good first impression. And that starts with your resume and your cover letter.
The dreaded resume and cover letter.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people find this part really daunting.
Oh, yeah.
What are some things to keep in mind?
Well, I think the first thing to remember is that your resume and cover letter are your first opportunity to
Yeah.
showcase your skills and experience to potential employers.
Mm-hmm.
So think of them as your opening act.
I like that.
It's your chance to tell your story and explain why you're the perfect fit for the role.
The JBA program breaks down the key sections of a resume into contact information, objective education experience, and skills.
It seems pretty straightforward,
Yeah.
but there are definitely some nuances that can make a big difference.
Okay, like what?
Well, for example, the skills section.
Okay.
A lot of people just list every skill they have,
Yeah.
but it's not enough just to list them. You need to tailor your skills to the specific job description.
Okay.
So use keywords and phrases directly from the job posting to show the employer that you've taken the time to understand their needs and that your abilities align with their requirements.
So you're speaking their language.
Exactly.
You're showing them that you get it.
And that you can hit the ground running.
Okay. And then there's the cover letter.
Oh, yes, the cover letter.
I think a lot of people struggle with how to make their cover letter stand out from the crowd.
Because a lot of cover letters sound exactly the same.
Yeah.
So boring.
Yeah. So what's your advice?
Well, I think the key is to use your cover letter to tell your story.
Okay.
Go beyond the bullet points of your resume and connect with the employer on a more personal level. Share your passion for the role.
Yeah.
Explain why you're genuinely excited about this company and this opportunity.
So it's not just a form letter.
Yeah, no.
It's like you're writing it to this specific person
Exactly.
and why you're excited about this specific job.
Yeah, and the JBA program, they have a structure they recommend,
Okay.
which is an introduction, a body with one or two relevant examples that highlight your skills, and a conclusion.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty standard, but it's all about what you put in there
Yeah.
that makes it stand out.
So it's all about being concise, being compelling, and making a genuine connection
Exactly.
with the reader.
And showing your personality a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah. And, this JBA program, they seem to have thought through
Yeah,
every aspect of this interview prep process.
they really have.
I'm curious about these mock interviews and these feedback sessions.
Oh, yeah, that's a key part of the program.
Okay.
Because it's one thing to understand the concepts and strategies,
Yeah.
but actually practicing those skills in a simulated interview setting is so valuable.
Mm-hmm.
It helps you build confidence, refine your delivery,
Yeah.
get comfortable answering those tough questions.
And I bet it helps to calm those pre-interview jitters.
Absolutely. The more you practice, the
Yeah.
more familiar and comfortable the process becomes. You're
Yeah.
not as scared anymore.
So you get to actually try out
Yeah.
what you've been learning
Right.
in a safe space
Exactly.
and get that feedback.
Yes, and the feedback is so important because you learn what's working, what needs improvement,
Yeah.
how to handle those unexpected curveballs that interviewers like to throw sometimes.
Totally. So it sounds like they've really created this supportive and comprehensive environment
Yes.
for students to develop these skills.
Yeah, and it's not just about getting the job.
Right.
It's about building confidence and developing skills that'll serve you well throughout your entire career.
So even if you don't land that specific job you're interviewing for,
Right.
you're still coming away with all these
Yeah.
valuable tools.
Absolutely.
So it's really an investment
It is.
in yourself and your future.
It's an investment in your potential.
Wow. I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
We have.
We've explored those core competencies, the power of the STAR method, and the art of crafting a really compelling resume and cover letter.
Yeah, we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
Yeah, and now I'm really interested to hear more about the structure of the JBA program itself.
Okay.
So what are the key lessons
All right.
that students can expect to learn?
Let's get into it. So the JBA program, it's broken down into 4 key lessons.
Okay.
Each one kind of builds on the last.
Okay.
And lesson 1 really focuses on those core competencies
Okay.
we were just talking about,
Hmm.
but it goes deeper than just defining what they are.
Okay.
It helps students understand why those competencies are so important to employers,
Right.
and then how to identify concrete examples from their own experiences that demonstrate those skills.
So it's not just a theoretical thing.
Right.
It's about how do you actually apply this?
Exactly. It's about connecting the dots
Okay.
between the concept and your own life.
I like that.
And then lesson 2 is where things start to get really practical because they introduce the STAR method, which we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
and they actually have students participate in mock interviews.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're not just learning about it, they're actually doing it.
That's so helpful.
It is.
Because I think for a lot of people,
Yeah.
just the thought of an interview is so nerve-wracking.
Right.
So to be able to practice in a safe environment
Exactly.
must be really helpful.
It takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
And you can get feedback.
Right. And they provide feedback during those mock interviews.
They do.
What kind of feedback do they give?
Well, they'll give feedback on everything.
Okay.
From, you know how you're answering the questions to
Yeah.
your body language,
Okay.
your overall presentation?
So it's not just about what you're saying.
No, it's about how you're saying it
Yeah.
and how you're coming across.
And I bet that's really helpful for people who get nervous.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, sometimes you don't even realize what
Yeah.
you're doing.
You're so focused on the content
Yeah.
that you forget about all those other things.
Yeah, like, am I making eye contact?
Exactly. Are you fidgeting?
Right. Are you,
Are you rambling?
Yeah, exactly.
So those mock interviews are a great way to get that feedback.
And then lesson 3
Yes, lesson 3.
is all about resumes and cover letters.
It is.
So they have a dedicated workshop for that,
They do.
where students get hands-on guidance
Mhm.
on crafting those documents.
And they cover everything from formatting and structure
Okay.
to tailoring the content to specific job descriptions.
So they actually help the students create
They do.
their resumes and cover letters.
Yeah, it's not just a lecture.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's a workshop
I love that.
where they're getting that one-on-one support.
Yeah, because it's one thing to know what a resume should look like,
Right.
but it's another thing to actually sit down and create one.
Especially when you're starting from scratch.
Right. And it can feel so overwhelming.
It can.
So to have somebody there to guide you through that process must be so helpful.
And give students the confidence to put their best foot forward.
Right. And I bet it's empowering too,
It is.
because you're creating something that represents you.
Yes, and you're proud of it.
Yeah.
And then finally, lesson 4
Okay.
is all about final preparation and feedback.
So this is like the dress rehearsal
It
before
is.
the big show.
It's about bringing everything together,
Okay.
making sure you've got all your bases covered.
So do they do another round of mock interviews
They do.
in lesson 4?
Yeah, one last chance to practice,
Okay.
get feedback, and make sure they're feeling really good.
Wow. So they're really set up for success
They are.
by the time they finish this program.
Yeah, and it's not just about getting a job.
Right.
It's about developing skills that'll help them throughout their careers.
What I'm struck by is how they've woven this idea of personal growth
Mm-hmm.
into the program.
Yes, it's not just about checking boxes.
Yeah.
It's about helping students discover their strengths,
Mm.
build their confidence, and develop a mindset.
Yeah.
that will empower them to succeed in any professional setting.
I love that.
It's about more than just the job. It's about investing in yourself
Exactly.
and your future.
So for our listeners out there who might be feeling overwhelmed by the job search process,
Yeah.
what's one piece of advice you'd leave them with?
I'd say think about a time
Rob?
when you successfully navigated a challenging situation.
Okay.
Maybe it was a tough project at work,
Mm-hmm.
a difficult conversation with a colleague,
Oh.
or a time when you had to adapt quickly to some unexpected circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
How can you use that experience
Yeah.
to demonstrate those core competencies?
Well, that's such a good question.
Because your experiences are your stories.
Yeah.
And those stories have the power to connect with interviewers
Yeah.
and show them who you really are.
It's about taking those real-life experiences and turning them into
Exactly.
interview gold.
That's a great way to put it.
This has been such an insightful deep dive.
It has been.
We've covered so much valuable ground.
We have.
I feel like we've given our listeners
I hope so.
a really comprehensive toolkit
Fingers crossed.
for interview success.
Yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Let me think. I think I've covered everything.
I think so too. It's
Yeah.
really about, using your experiences to show who you are as a person.
Yeah. Authenticity is key.
Yeah. And even if you don't get the job,
Right.
the experience itself is valuable.
It is. Every interview is a learning opportunity.
Yeah. You can always take something away from it.
Absolutely. And the more you interview, the more comfortable you'll become.
Yeah. It's like anything else, the more you practice,
Right.
the better you get.
Exactly. And you'll start to see patterns
Yeah.
in the questions that you're asked.
And you'll get better at tailoring your answers
Mm.
to what they're looking for. And you'll be able to highlight your strengths.
Yeah. It's all about that continuous learning.
It is a growth mindset.
Well, this has been so insightful.
It has been fun.
Yeah, it's been a really encouraging deep dive.
I agree.
I feel like we've given our listeners a lot to think about.
I hope so. And I really appreciate you taking the time
Of course.
to share your expertise with us.
It was my pleasure.
So to our listeners out there, good luck with those interviews.
You got this.
Remember, you've got this, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.